They broke a chain in the great links of civilization, definitely. And it feels like we have actually inherited far less cultural wisdom than our predecessors, and that's why there's a real...
Be more specific.
So, for example, let's talk about relationships. I think it's about a third of young men 18 to 30 have never had one.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They're
it's
virgins
horrible.
all
This
through
is a horrible, horrible thing.
Yeah, and the reason it's been outsourced to things like dating apps, and I've been very anti-dating app despite...
Pornography is really what's taken over.
Quite, yeah. There's also, weirdly, the internet, there was a piece in The Atlantic quite a while ago about the Gen Z sex recession, and they mapped internet rollout, and you saw the decline of teenage pregnancy with that, because obviously people are just staying at home and not even having real-life interactions. But yeah, porn's terrible. Again, another product of the sexual revolution and the treatment of consumers. Like, well, whatever you just do in the privacy of your own bedroom is totally fine. It doesn't have societal effects. But also, dating apps are particularly pernicious. And full disclosure, after railing against dating apps, I then met my wife on one. Oops. However, most people don't. And this is why people are having fewer relationships, because dating and courtship was something that the elders once did on behalf of their children. There's very little stewardship now. Instead, it's just a consumer experience. Yet again, like the older generation has shirked its responsibility to help younger people couple up.
Well, we had this conversation on the way over here. I've been advocating for, since the early 90s, to bring back dating, but come up with a new word for it, because dating was you could not even use that word without being just like, get out of here. Courtship, forget that word. That was not even a possibility. And when I started talking about it, the Independent Women's Forum had put out a study on college women. They were all miserable. Well, they said, then they went back and said, why? They perceived they had 4 options socially: random hookup, friends with benefits, which, as someone yelled out to me at a college event, I said, that looks good on paper, but it doesn't work good. And then somebody yelled out, so does communism. I thought, you got it. And then the other was to get joined at the hip, these rapidly developing relationships with somebody you don't even know if you want to be with, but it's a refuge. It's a life preserver.
Well, I think one of the challenges is throughout human history, the children who ended up getting married lived in the same town their whole lives, where their lives were the exact same as their grandparents. They likely knew each other from a very young age and got married at what we would describe as a relatively young age, maybe 18, had kids in their early 20s. Now the issue is you've got women graduating college, 24, 25, or 26. They don't have men in their lives that they've known since they were young, and they're already adults. So what ends up happening is they meet people that they don't actually align with, and they're trying to form lifelong bonds with someone who has a dramatically different worldview and experience.
Well, also, I mean, as a woman, I can say it was an awful thing that we were instructed, and I think it's even still happening, that the worst thing we could do would be to get married before, finishing college, and probably best to at least wait till you're 30, and, to get married, young. It was like being like desperate or stupid. And then, I mean, at the same time, of course, like what were we supposed to live like nuns, until we're, 25, 30, whatever. And it was almost like, and I see this with women in New York all the time in my practice there, when I would see a ton of women, they would like confess to me like in this like secret way. I'm talking to like, young, successful lawyer and banking associates. They'd be like, well, it's really weird, but like a part of me just wants to get married and have kids. I don't like want to be doing this. But then it's like they've gone so far down this road. They have $100,000 in student debt. They have this whole, life and identity built around it. I think it was just super confusing for a lot of people. But I mean, I think at least now we're finally talking about it again. I mean, for me, again, this whole thing with the mental health benefits of free speech is so important, because I felt, and like these women I'm describing in my office felt, like you couldn't even just come out and say this publicly, or it would be like just some deep shame.
I think a lot of that resentment that you mentioned comes from feeling that we've had freedom foisted upon us that we didn't technically want. Yeah. Like those generations before, they grew up in a small town, they had a close network of family around them, so they had a life plan set out before them. They didn't necessarily need to question it was fulfilling. Now, what you have to do, if you're told you can't get married by your 30, you've got to go to college, you've got to get this job, you've got a series of initiation rituals that are all about you as a producer and a consumer, and not an inextricable member of a family and a tribe. And And what that means is, at some stage in there, a family and a child and a loving relationship has to be rationally planned. Like, you have to make time for that family. Rather than invite it into your life as an unexpected joy, you've got to go, right, I've got to get all my financial ducks in order. My spouse has to get all their financial ducks in order. We have to be perfectly compatible. We have to have some sort of housing stability. We have to brace ourselves for if the government screws up the economy or, COVID strikes or whatever again. And then at some point, we have to take time out of our very individuated lives to come together, sacrifice some money, and have a child. And none of our friends have children, so we don't know the value of it. We don't know where we start. And I think that's quite a source of resentment. We've been cut off from the traditions that just made life easy and predictable.
Yeah, I mean, like, even at the micro level, the freedom has become paralyzing. Like with the dating app, where you're in charge of picking exact like filters for who you want. I mean, that's completely paralyzing. Where my great-grandparents, like, they met at a grocery store. She was the cashier. He was the customer. Like, I'd actually rather not have the freedom, or, like, your environment produces
Too many
your spouse.
choices.
Do you know what would fix that? User reviews.
Yeah.
If we're going to turn ourselves into an Amazon product listing, we might as well have user reviews.
I think the future is going to be dudes are going to get female robots, women are going to get male robots, and then they're going to be AI programmed to be the perfect personality for companionship. And then when people want children, it'll be just like a marketplace of exchanging genetic material.
Well,
It's already happening.
It's better than the alternative
It's
right
already
now.
happening.
Like, I've been in two of my friends' weddings, and you're noticing this new thing where men bawl when the wife comes down the altar. And I think what's going on there is because they realize how much of a miracle marriage is in 2025. That they've
Or because they're whiny little babies.
it could be, but I think like it's just something that shouldn't be taken for granted in today's society, and it's like this serious mountain that to find a spouse is like a feat today.
I'm
50 years
really
ago, it was
worried about
magical.
your generation. I feel so horrible that you're suffering with all this stuff, and there's so many different layers to it.
They're going to have sexy robots. So,
Blade
and
Runner.
and the robots can look like whoever you want.
Wow.
You got to start writing screenplays because
but
this
this-
dystopian realities.
This is already happening. There are women who go on Facebook for the sperm marketplace. It's actually happening. And they say, I'm looking for a guy for a wham bam thank you ma'am, just want to have a kid. Don't want to know your name. Don't want to even see your face. Just come in, do the deed and leave. And there are guys like, yep.
I'm in the wrong business.
I don't know if that business is doing anything good for anybody.
Well,
but
women are doing a quote donation,
Yeah.
like which comes with like a lot of reimbursements,
Yeah.
for your donation.
Donating for $5,000.
did you see
a lot
the
more than
20,000,
that.
yeah.
you see the guy who cried when his AI female assistant died?
Yes.
She reached the GPT text limit of like 100,000 characters and then just reset, and he cried. And then he asked her, he made a new one and asked it to marry him, and said yes.
He was also married.
Indeed.
Yeah. So I feel like his actual marriage is being neglected somewhat.
Well, that's a really interesting question I had about that guy is the wife going to feel betrayal? Is she going to experience like real betrayal because of this machine?
What happens when he can buy an animatronic? So with the Optimus bots, and not just Optimus, but the Boston Dynamics, all it's going to take is proper skinning of the machines, and they will move around. So maybe in 10 years they'll look just like humans and move just like humans. Already actually, I'll put it this way: I think once we get in the next couple of years more advanced AI, the rapid development of the technology will be profound and indescribable, to the point where we have the humanoid robots dancing and stuff, but that's stamp collecting. Once we get advanced AI, it will draw the schematics for us in ways that it would take us a long time to produce.
But we have deep, hardwired, evolutionary, wiring. I think that like a heat-seeking missile, I think that we know that that's not a person. It might satisfy you for a night. I don't know, but
Yes.
I think we need and want that quote
Yes,
real
but.
person. I can't believe we have to even.
Yes, but you're also talking about humans who take the path of least resistance, and you're going to say for $9.95 per month, your subscription to Janet is guaranteed, or good luck on Tinder. And they're going to be like, well, I'll get Janet and then try and do Tinder. And guess what? Tinder will never work.
Not just that, but you're also saying that applying to a generation whose sexual norms are normal. Don't forget, you're talking to a generation of especially boys, but increasingly girls, who from age 8 have seen thousands of porn videos.
Yeah.
Yep.
All of their sexual
crazy
norms
porn videos.
Yeah, all their sexual norms for a decade are this person's a commodity that is on demand.
Yep.
That's how they think of relationships. They don't think of one as give and take and love and affection and negotiation. Freya India wrote a really good Substack on this recently. She writes for Jonathan Haidt quite frequently. And there's a good passage in it where she said, basically, our generation have been lumped with the sort of the sexual freedoms presented to previous generations as something wonderful and celebratory. The predatory porn companies have targeted us to be lifelong consumers. They have faced no backlash from governments of age verification materials because mainly adults want to consume anonymously without it being encumbered. And we have seen this for decades. And then we are told when we enter the marketplace of dating to expect love and affection and openness and vulnerability from us. It's like, well, you've basically pried an entire generation free from all of the old romantic
I
feelings.
hear you, but biology is, I think, and I don't know, I'm just guessing, but I think, Mother Nature is bigger and stronger and will ultimately override.
I hope so.
I mean, people that
The birth
saw
rates don't
prostitutes in the old days still had relationships.
Yeah, but
Pornography
they couldn't live with the prostitute, and the prostitute wasn't on demand, and there was a significant cost barrier.
And
Like it
also,
wasn't just a dopamine button that could.
Although
Yeah,
the
like
French
the British-
managed to do that for a long period of time.
And the British-
they just called it libertinism. Put a nice name on it.
Well, the pernicious thing with pornography too is like once the person is, not to get graphic, but finished with the pornography, they just turn it off.
Yeah.
So it's completely eliminating the
work.
the responsibility you have to your partner after you're you're finished. And so it's like completely warped everybody's perception of intimacy. And society is reflecting this. Suicide rates have never been higher. The birth rate's never been lower. Like I do agree that there is that biological impulse, but I wouldn't underrate the ability for technology and these sorts of effects to make you forget what intimacy ever was.
Right, but in
Coy,
those-
you and I were talking earlier how there's not enough research on exactly what he's describing. That's why he's an oracle.
Right.
We need more of that
The
information.
problem with getting more of it is that I think it's a guy who runs a website called Your Brain on Porn and does research into this, and he says he's tried to find control groups and he can't.
Yeah.
He can't find enough young men to participate.
Even North
But
Korea.
porn is different from what you guys are describing because, to your point, when a person is engaging with porn, they typically are only going to be viewing it in moments of intense arousal. And then when it's done, as you said, they click it off. And sometimes they might feel shame or whatever, but they move on with their day and they pretty much forget about it till next time they're going to use the porn
don't.
again.
Not yay.
Unless they get
But
addicted.
wait, but when you have an actual robot sitting there, then you have to sit there in your normal day-to-day life looking at the robot, and some part of you, I think, would say, "What the hell am I doing?"
I don't think
You know
so.
what I mean?
I don't think so.
No?
There was an app they released that was like AI chatbot friends or girlfriends, and immediately all the dudes started using it to sext, and so the company said we're shutting this down, causing a user revolt, and then they were like, okay, we're turning it back on, but only for people who are you're gonna be grandfathered in to be able to send sex messages to a robot that you know is a robot, and it's just words, and then. I think that was for like a year. I think recently they announced they were turning it back on because what happens is if you look at OnlyFans, the intention of OnlyFans was supposed to be a website where creators, podcasters, musicians could make bonus content for fans. Porn took over, and the CEO tried shutting it down. And then the company started spiraling and going under. So the investors are like, yo, hey, we'd rather be rich. So we turned it back on. My understanding, I could be wrong, is that this AI girlfriend app turned sex back on. These people are not doing this. These are guys, and it's really simple. 26-year-old guy, and he says, I will take fake love and lust over nothing. And so they'll take it. So they're going to have robo-girlfriends, and they're gonna feel somewhat bad probably, but they'll feel better than without it. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.